Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us for another Avidyne webinar today. Today's topic is connecting an IFD with a Stratus3 or a third-party ADSB in device and an iPad. Please make sure that your speakers are on, your microphones are off. You are more than welcome to ask questions at any point throughout this webinar. We will address them at the end. It also is being recorded. I'm joined today by Billy DeMauro, our digital marketing specialist, and Tom Harper, our senior director of marketing.
Hello? Yeah, just type the questions in the questions bar there. We'll get to them.
So here's the things that we're going to be going over today. Things to know before using this capability of the IFD. What devices will and will not allow the IFD to receive traffic and weather. IFD, iPad, and third-party device architecture, so understanding how these devices all work together. Setting up the IFD with the Stratus3 or another device that is Capstone capable. So we'll go through configuring the IFD, preparing the Stratus, and then getting the iPad, Stratus, and IFD to all talk to each other. Then also to address those that have devices like the 4-flight Sentry or other devices that are not Capstone capable. We're going to go over that setup as well. A couple of tips and tricks and things to be aware of that often end up being a support call, but are pretty easy fixes here. So I just want to give you guys some powerful tools to be able to help yourselves out here. We'll go over a brief summary of what we did today, and then of course we'll have some resources and questions and answers at the end. So things to know before using this capability on the IFD. If your IFD is already receiving ADSB in traffic and weather from a device which it's wired to, like a Skytrax 200, a GTX 345, this information is going directly to the IFD from those devices. And this is the recommended source of information. The IFD can send this information to your iPad. So if you're using a device like a Stratus3, this is the portable devices now, which can provide the IFD with traffic and weather. And the IFD is already receiving information from an installed device like a Skytrax 200. It will not accept and display the additional information. The IFD treats these devices as though it is a wired device. So sometimes there is a degree of latency or a lapse in the data rate from these devices to the IFD, and the IFD does not know the difference between a certified wired device and a non-certified Wi-Fi capable device. So you will see traffic sensor faults and other sorts of errors like that, even if there isn't an actual problem with the receiver. It is not recommended to change any settings for receiving wired traffic and weather to the IFD. Only change the setting, which I'll show you guys here, that is recommended to get ADSB traffic and weather into the IFD, assuming that you don't already have an ADSB in receiver like the Skytrax 200 or GTX 345. And I will go over some of the protocol jargon that a lot of these devices have, but for more specific information on each individual device, if I don't cover one that you might have, you would probably need to contact your manufacturer for that device to get more information on the protocols and limitations. So, what portable devices will and will not allow the IFD to receive traffic and weather? So, any device that can communicate using protocols that are often called OpenADSB, GDL90, UDP 4000, or Capstone. So that includes the Stratus3, the Stratux, and some of the Levil devices. Those will all work to get traffic and weather onto your IFD as well as your iPad. Here's some devices that do not work. So the Stratus and the Stratus 2/2S, these use extended GDL90. Extended GDL90 does not work with the IFD. That's more of a Garmin proprietary protocol. We also do not work with the Sentry. That's another extended GDL90 one. And we do not work with the GDL 39, 50, and the 52 for a separate reason. Those are Bluetooth only, not Wi-Fi, and the IFDs only communicate by Wi-Fi. And we have this nice little graphic down below that kind of summarizes what capabilities you can expect and what does not work at all. So back into the actual setup here, the IFD, iPad, and the third-party device architecture. So this is assuming we have a Capstone-capable device, this graphic here. So this includes your Stratus3, which is in the picture and what I'll be using today. This could also be a Stratux, which is a home-built device. It's like a kit that they have, and also the Levil products. So the device itself is really the hub of information. The IFD is a client or a passive listener to the Wi-Fi protocol of the device. So you can transmit traffic and weather to the IFD, and you can also transmit traffic, weather, and GPS position data to your iPad. And the flight plan transfer portion of this, if you're using IFD 100 or 4Flight, that is not directly to the IFD. It's done by way of that device. So in this case, the Stratus, like we have pictured here. So it does not go directly to the IFD, it's done through the device. And I'll go back to the last slide to kind of show you the difference here again, but now this is assuming the architecture where you have a non-capstone capable device. So traffic and weather is sent only to the iPad. GPS position is sent also to the iPad, but you still have the flight plan transfer to or from the iPad to the IFD via the device. So here's where we have the Stratus again. Here is something that's not capstone capable. So hopefully that makes some sense there. But of course, if you have any questions, please go ahead and type it away. So let's get into setting up the IFD to communicate with a Stratus or another device that is capstone capable. So we do have to go into maintenance mode to allow the IFD to receive these labels through the Wi-Fi protocol. So excuse me, I'm going to go ahead and do that here. Let's see here. All right, so let me stop this here for a second. Okay, so to get into maintenance mode, all you need is a blank FAT32 formatted USB, like the one that would use normally to update your databases with. So we're going to go ahead and insert it into the IFD, and I'll display the instructions after. We're going to go ahead and power down the device. You can either do this with the Avionics Master, or I'm just using the on-off switch on the IFD. Okay, so that's turned off. I'll go ahead and turn it on again. So now we're in maintenance mode. You can go ahead and remove the USB stick. So now all we're going to do is press the config tab, or you can also use the auxiliary button two-way rocker switch function. So we're going to get to the config tab. Using the lower right-hand knob, you have the inner portion, the smaller part of the knob, and then the outer portion, which is closer to the bezel. We're using the outer portion, and we're going to get to the wireless portables configuration page. There we go. So it's a few button clicks, and if we zoom in here real quick, we'll see that Capstone is set to disabled. So all you have to do is to change this to enabled. So press the lower right hand knob once, use the inner portion, one click. Push it again, and now it's enabled. While we're here, do not change any settings for anything regarding what would you call it, ADSB, traffic, and weather information coming into the IFD. So anything up here that would say Capstone or Skytrax or MLB 100 or NGT 9000, you do not want to turn any of that data off on the main RS-232 page. So we have, there we go, Capstone set to enabled. We're all done here. That's the only configuration you have to change in maintenance mode. So now I'm going to go ahead and press the Logs tab. All right, and then I'm going to press the Done button. This brings us back to regular flight mode. And I'll let that boot up before we get back to the instructions here. So I hope that that was clear, and I'll go over the instructions we have in our presentation as well. So exactly what we did here, inserted a FAT32 USB stick into the IFD, turned it on, we pressed the config tab, scroll to the wireless portables page with the lower right hand knob, and then press the knob once, change the configuration field one click to enabled, press it again, and we're done. That's all you have to do in the IFD to make it accept this information. All right, so the next part of this is we have to configure the Stratus to transmit the Capstone data. So normally these come configured with GDL, extended GDL 90 data. So we want to change that to OpenADSB, which is another pseudonym for Capstone. So the steps for this, you have to download the the Stratus Horizon Pro app by Aperio. It's a free app. And you're going to connect your iPad to it. So it's like connecting to a Wi-Fi, and I'll show you how to do that here in a second. You press the settings icon, and then on the Stratus settings, like we have pictured here, it's a screenshot from my iPad, you make sure that OpenADSB mode is turned on, which you see in the bottom right-hand corner. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. So here I have our Stratus, and we have my iPad. So let me zoom this out a little bit and maybe tilt it a little bit down. There we go. So I'm going to go ahead and just turn on the Stratus. All right, let that boot up for a second. All right, the Stratus is now on. Now, you're going to want to go to the settings in your iPad. Go to Wi-Fi. So here's the Stratus name, Stratus 3020502. Going to select, oh, keeps trying to change it. There we go. And I'll bring this a little bit closer. So now we're actually connected to the Stratus Wi-Fi. That's all good. Now get out of the main settings of the iPad, open up the Stratus Horizon app. All right, once the Stratus Horizon app is open, we're going to go ahead and press the settings icon, which is down here in the lower left-hand corner. So touch that. Now we go to Stratus settings. Here you can see OpenADSB mode is turned on. So normally the default is off, but we're going to keep it on. So that's everything you have to do with the Stratus. So now the Stratus is being configured, the IFD is configured, and you can configure the Stratus in your aircraft or at your hangar before you configure the IFD. So now, assuming that we're at our aircraft, I'll go back to our written instructions here to actually go over the interface, and then we'll go ahead and do it, of course, here live. So in the iPad, we're going to go ahead and connect the iPad to the Stratus Wi-Fi. Then you're going to go ahead and open up ForeFlight or the IFD 100, or whichever app that you normally use. So now in the IFD, your panel-mounted IFD in the aircraft, we're going to press the auxiliary button, then press the setup tab, which is pictured here. We're going to press the connectivity menu to open it, and we're going to make sure that Wi-Fi is turned on, and then we're going to scroll down to networks, which you see pictured here, and we're going to go ahead and scroll down the networks list because it'll pick up any Wi-Fi from any device that's transmitting Wi-Fi until we get to our Stratus name, which is pictured in the first picture here. Go ahead and select that, make sure there's the blue cursor box around it, and go ahead and press the Connect line select key. So eventually it'll say connected, as you see in the lower picture, and then the last thing we'll have to do is scroll down to devices and make sure that the device is set to allow always. And this is your iPad now interrogating the IFD. So here's a picture of that. And sometimes it comes up as a string of numbers. That's your Internet Protocol address or IP address. You can verify that this is your iPad by going back to the Wi-Fi settings in your iPad, like I have pictured in the lower picture. Press the little I button, that's the more information button on the Wi-Fi name. Scroll down and you will see it says IP address, and you can see this is actually from my iPad. The IP addresses are matching and the device in the IFD is set to allow always. So let's go ahead and actually do that here with the equipment. So Stratus is already on, right? And the iPad's already connected to it. And off screen here, I'm just opening up 4Flight real quick. So in the IFD, press the auxiliary button, press the setup tab. We're going to scroll down to connectivity, and you can either do this with buttons and knob or touchscreen. Right, here's an example of touchscreen. Opening up the connectivity menu, Wi-Fi is set to on. Open up networks. So right now it is on the IFD's own hotspot. We're going to change that to the Stratus Wi-Fi. So scroll down. Let's see here. Let me cycle the power on the Stratus real quick. Oh, it just picked it up as I turned it off. That's fine. So sometimes it takes a second for it to realize what's going on here. Clear that message. So Stratus Wi-Fi, Stratus is up and running. Press the connect line select key, either the actual line select key or the screen. And for my testing of this, it takes usually about 5 to 10 seconds. There we go. So now it says connected. Excellent. So 4Flight's already open on the iPad. We're just going to scroll down now to devices. Clear that message out again. Devices. Open this. And my iPad, which I've connected many times, is already set to allow always. So now we're connected with the IFD and the Stratus. And I can prove that real quick. We'll go ahead and.
Hey, Will, can you turn the brightness down a little? Because so it's kind of blossoming and we can't read the highlighted block.
Okay, yeah, sure thing. Let me go display here. And I'll turn both of these down. 60% should be good. And
it's a little bit out of focus.
60%. How's that?
Thanks.
Okay. So I'll close the display again. Go back up to connectivity, networks. Still connected to the Stratus. And devices were still connected. So now I'll show you here in 4Flight something real quick, and this is also mentioned in the tips and tricks. The Stratus or ForeFlight will always ask this question here is, do you want to turn on ForeFlight mode? Cancel that. You never want this to be in ForeFlight mode if you want ADS-B traffic and weather to go to the IFD. So I'm going to go ahead and just transfer a easy flight plan real quick in ForeFlight. So Kilo Mike, Lima, Bravo, Melbourne, and let's just go direct to Ocala, Kilo, Oscar, Charlie, Foxtrot. I'll hide the keyboard here. We have our route painted right here. I'll go ahead and transfer this flight plan to the panel. Hit send to panel as you normally would. It says route upload ready in the IFD. Press the FMS button, then press the route tab. Here is Melbourne to OCF. That's the route I just loaded. Just go ahead and select it and then press activate route. Now the route is loaded in the IFD and is active. So the flight plan transfer still works, and I can get both traffic and weather on the IFD and the iPad from the Stratus, in this case the Stratus3. So that's with a Capstone capable device, right? It doesn't matter if it's the Stratus3 or the Stratux or the Level device, the setup is the same. You might not have to go configure the Stratux with a special app or the Level, but with the Stratus3, you absolutely have to. And I think that covers the Stratus3 and the Capstone capable devices. So back to some instructions here with setting up the IFD to communicate with a device that is not Capstone capable. So similar to the previous instructions for how to actually get these things set up here. So you have to connect your iPad to the portable device Wi-Fi. This doesn't matter if it's a Stratus 2 or a Stratus 1 or a Sentry. You're going to connect your iPad to that first, and then you're going to open up ForeFlight. Next, in the IFD, the same thing as we did earlier. You're going to press the auxiliary button, then the setup tab. Then you're going to open the connectivity menu. In the connectivity menu, make sure that the Wi-Fi is on, and then scroll down to networks and open that menu, and place the blue cursor over the device name that you're trying to connect to. Press the connect line select key on the left-hand side, and eventually it'll say connected. Scroll down to devices and make sure that your iPad is set to allow always, and then you can also go back again and check that the IP addresses match, so you know which one is which. So here's some tips and tricks with some of these portable devices. If you're using ForeFlight in the Stratus3, like we had seen there, it'll ask you if you want to go to ForeFlight mode. Always press cancel to this request. So if you change the Stratus back to ForeFlight mode, you're changing the Stratus into extended GDL90, and you will not get traffic and weather on the IFD. So an IFD receiving traffic and weather from a compatible wireless device will, on occasion, flag a traffic sensor error. This is only temporary. In the unlikely event that ForeFlight is unable to transfer the flight plan immediately when you press the transfer to device button, just go ahead and close the ForeFlight app completely by double tapping the home key and then swiping up on the app, and then reopen it. And if you're using the IFD100, our app, with a non-capstone capable device like a Sentry or Stratus or Stratus 2S, you will not get traffic and weather on the IFD100. And the reason for that is it's the same protocol requirements as the actual IFD in your aircraft. So a brief summary of everything that we've accomplished here. I know it was a little quick, and I can go back and demonstrate something again if anyone has any questions. So you can connect to a wireless ADS-B in receiver with your IFD, right? It's not always recommended to do so if you already have traffic and weather going to your IFD. So my recommendation would be to keep the traffic and weather that you have wired to your IFD there. Don't change that, and keep your portable ADSB in receiver as a standby. Or if you choose to interface these three things together, even if you are receiving traffic and weather, do not enable Capstone in the IFD in maintenance mode, and do not disable the ADSB in information going to the IFD. So those will keep all the devices happy, and you won't have any configuration problems. I do not recommend going in and changing any configurations aside from that one Capstone enabled protocol. And again, check with your device manufacturer on the protocol. Many devices advertise and say that we use GDL90 protocol, when really it's actually extended GDL90, which is not compatible with the IFD. We still have our current promotion going for the free install promo, which is 2 hours at $150 of shop labor. So that's $300 per IFD sold. That's going through January 31st of next year. Of course, if you have any questions, our Avidyne YouTube channel is always available. Pilot and tech support training videos are there. If you go to avidyne.com, we have all our latest pilot guides and our pilot knowledge base there. You can also email us, pilotsupport@avidyne.com and techsupport@avidyne.com. We also have our live chat feature on avidyne.com. I did get one chat yesterday. First one we've had. We had this feature now for a couple of weeks, so please definitely go ahead and check that out. And also visit us on our social media pages. So we have our Facebook page, the Avidyne Pilots Club, and also our Instagram, which is @Avidyne Corp. All right, and I think we can open up the floor to any questions. So, Tom, any questions?
And if maybe we can't hear Tom, we have one that says there's a recommendation to always start the Stratus 3 first before turning on the avionics switch in ForeFlight. Works like a champ.
Yes, that's a very good pre-flight action there, and the reason for that is the IFD will remember the last settings that you changed. So if the last thing you did was connect to a Stratus and you were doing that, it'll remember that at startup. So the first thing it's going to look for is that Stratus signal.
Can you hear me now?
We got you now, Tom.
Okay, good. Yeah, there's one of the gentlemen had a question about, were you finished with that question? I'm sorry.
Yeah, yeah, we covered that one.
Okay, the gentleman, he's not seeing the connectivity in the aux setup page. Can you go to the aux system page and show him where we can see whether his Wi-Fi and Bluetooth are enabled? He may need an enablement.
Yeah, there's a couple of things to do with this here. So I'll go ahead and show it here. I'll stop sharing my screen so everything goes full screen here. So press the auxiliary button, and if you don't have a connectivity tab, press the systems tab. So these instructions apply for software 10.3.1.2. There is slightly different instructions for how to do this with 10.2.6.1. But one caveat to that is with 10.2.6.1 software, you're not going to get traffic and weather to the IFD at all. This was a function that only came available with the 10.3 software. So our software version's right here if you wanted to check that. So this is aux button, systems tab, status software page, and here is our software version. And then as far as everything else, it's kind of blurry right here, but these are our options that are highlighted in the IFD. So you want to make sure that enet/IO is highlighted, which is the second option right here. That is your internet protocol. So that has to be highlighted for this to work. So if you go setup, you should have connectivity, and if that is disabled,
So your point then is it could be the old software.
Yeah,
And the
it
old
could be the old
software
system.
doesn't have this level. The setup pages just look different, but there
Yep,
is a way to turn on Wi-Fi on and off on the old.
correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you want specific instructions for that, we do have a video on our Avidyne avionics YouTube channel, but I can just walk you through it since it's a bit of a longer video. I don't mind helping out at all. So please go ahead and email us.
All right. How can I make sure my FlyQ IFD transfer flight plans to and from the iPad in addition to getting ADSB? Well, I
So,
assume it's the interface with FlyQ rather than 4Flight.
so FlyQ, I'm trying to remember, there was a setting in FlyQ, and it's been such a long time since I've worked with FlyQ on anything, but there's one setting that they had in their app, but the transfer of information would be the same as if it were with 4Flight. So it's still going to go FlyQ through the Stratus or whatever your device is to the IFD. It depends if FlyQ is compatible with the device you're using, but yeah, we don't get a whole lot of FlyQ calls. I suppose I should probably download a FlyQ app, and I don't know if it's a subscription-based thing or not, but we can test that out certainly.
Does the Dynon ADSB in device work with 540? The
It
IFD
does
540.
not if it's through Wi-Fi. The reason for that is extended GDL90. So I get a lot of questions on that in support, and they use the extended GDL90 protocol, so you're not going to get wireless traffic and weather to the IFD.
Are there plans to enhance IFD interfaces to allow Bluetooth such devices, such as the Garmin GDLs, work with IFDs? And I say there's no plan at this time to do that. They use a non-standard protocol.
Yeah, Bluetooth is a bit more of cowboy country, if you will, when it comes to that information. So each device manufacturer has to make specific protocols, and the IFD is a very standardized device, which is why we chose the Capstone protocol and why we also do it over Wi-Fi.
We
Bluetooth
reserve the
right now
Bluetooth
is,
channel for our Bluetooth keyboard.
yeah, exactly what I was about to say. Yeah, it's only reserved for our keyboard.
Okay. I currently use my Stratus 3 to talk to my iFly GPS, which I was also having communicating to the IFD. How would this change the mix?
You
iFly
said
GPS?
it was a Stratus 3 communicating to a what GPS?
iFly GPS.
iFly GPS. I'm not sure of what that
Yeah,
is.
I don't know either.
Yeah, so I don't think the iFly, well, I'm not sure of what the iFly GPS is, but it just has to be able to transmit data on that UDP 4000 protocol, also known as Capstone or Open ADSB. From my understanding, Wi-Fi devices that work, if it's not a portable ADSB in device, it has to be something like an iPad or an iPhone, and there's very few other devices that'll work at all, if at all, with the Wi-Fi.
Okay. Let's see here. I just to clarify, I have a Sentry Plus. It is not capstone capable, therefore it will not receive traffic information. It'll receive it, the IFD won't display it. Is that right, Will?
Yeah. So I'll go back here to, let's see. So the Sentry devices, you're correct with saying that they are Capstone, extended GDL90. So right here, what you're going to be able to do with your Sentry of any model, right, and your iPad, is you're going to be able to transfer flight plans back and forth to and from the iPad/IFD, but the ADSB data is only going to remain on the iPad, and that data is only going to work with 4Flight. Oh, I'm sorry, I turned off the wrong thing. There we go.
Thank you.
Here we go. So right here in the middle in this yellow column, Sentry, right, any model of it, flight plan transfer with the IFD from an iPad, and ADSB only remains on the iPad.
So the receiver receives those data, the weather and traffic. It's just a question of where it can display, and the IFD panel mount won't show it, but the iPad will.
So like this graphic right here.
Thank you. All right, let's see what's next here. I receive traffic from a GTX 345. I now often get false traffic very near my plane on the new IFD. I did not have this issue with the 530. Is that a config issue with 429 and 232 both hooked?
That would be a
Yeah.
configuration problem. And it could also be an antenna problem as well. You should probably have the GTX checked out to make sure that the ICAO address was not changed. And also it could be an antenna problem as well. I mean, depending on how old the GTX 345 is, that could certainly be a problem. But we call that ghosting traffic.
Yeah.
You're picking up your own ADS-B out information.
This gentleman saying, just make sure you tell any of the passengers that might be using ForeFlight to not turn on flight ForeFlight mode, like you talked about earlier. But sometimes you're not using the iPad, someone else is. Make sure you brief your crew.
Yeah.
Don't turn that off. It's a good point. Here's a recommendation from Felix. It says, always start the Stratus 3 first before turning on the avionics switch and ForeFlight. It works like a champ. There you go.
Yeah.
That's a recommendation from a user. Okay, next question. How well does the IFD talk to Aspen?
IFDs talk to Aspen very well. I fly in an aircraft equipped with IFDs and an Aspen, which is actually the picture here. It's our Avidyne Flight Club plane. It works very well. The only thing I find a little bit interesting is when you go on a GPS approach, or you have a GPS-based flight plan, is the needle does not completely turn magenta. It stays green, so sometimes it can get a little bit confusing, so just look at the enunciation there. But I have no complaints about the Aspen. It's actually a pretty nice device and interfaces pretty well with the IFDs.
Does the IFD talk to or connect to WingX?
WingX. I've actually not heard of WingX before, so if that's an app,
It does not.
the answer could be probably.
No, it doesn't
And
currently. We haven't tested it anyway.
yeah, we have not tested it, so I'm not too sure about it. It would be worth a try, though, that's for sure. And if you'd like that connectivity to work, you might want to contact WingX, because we do have a software developer kit, SDK. So we release this with our softwares, and it's just up to these app producers like ForeFlight. We give them our SDK every time we've updated it to incorporate those changes, so there's continued functionality, if there's functionality at all. So that's one thing to keep in mind there.
Okay, do I need to have a Jeppesen account subscription to be able to use my IFD 100 app?
Yes, so the IFD 100 app uses the same databases that your IFDs do, so you would have to have a Jeppesen subscription.
So the main thing you have to remember is the IFD in the panel and the IFD 100 app, the database, the nav databases have to match. They could both be expired, but they have to match. I mean, for IFR, you want them current, obviously, but if you just want to go fly with them, otherwise you won't be able to transfer the flight plan. You can do all the remote control stuff, but the flight plan will not transfer unless the nav data matches.
Yeah, our last webinar we did 2 weeks ago was on this, how to set up all that information there. So if you go to avidyne.com, we have that webinar there for more information, or you can contact us and we can help you out.
So here's a clarification on the question earlier about FlyQ. My FlyQ does have the option. It does have the option to transfer flight plans to and from the IFD. It's just that it doesn't always transfer the actual plan to the IFD. I know we used to work quite well with this. I think they had a software change. Well, maybe you can add color to this. And it kind of broke that. So I don't know if they got that solved, but that was a change that was made on their end, as I understood it.
Yeah, the last time I spoke to them was about 2 years ago.
Oh,
And that's when we released, or actually, yeah, about 2 years ago. That's when we had the first iteration of 10.3 software released. And I was working with some of their tech support people to get things incorporated. Um, and they had it working with 10.3. It's the same thing with 10.3.02 as it is now with 10.3.12. So I'm not sure why it would intermittently connect like that. I don't know if it flags any errors or anything like that in FlyQ or in the IFD, but I'm willing to help out. If you can send some screenshots over, it might be also worth contacting FlyQ, but I don't think, well, I think they've probably updated their SDK to match ours, but yeah, it's been a little bit since we've spoken to them last.
um, this customer that we talked about the iFly GPS, he clarified that that's a portable GPS. I mean, the whole point of
Oh,
this is that the IFD is your GPS of record. It's your IFR certified. So
yeah,
having a second GPS interfering, it's not going to work. That's the
yeah,
way I understand it.
I'm not too sure about that. I mean, if it's a GPS receiver, just like a Stratus, I mean, the IFD is not going to be taking that GPS data. It's only
It's
going
just
to
going
be
to ignore it,
taking
right?
ADSB in data. So I don't see any problems with those things interfacing as
Okay.
long as they can interface on Wi-Fi. It just might not get the traffic and weather to the IFD like you'd like it to, if you're trying to do that. But the flight plan transfer and everything, as long as it's Wi-Fi, should work.
If you're not connecting to the Stratus, what is the benefit of keeping open ADS mode on?
So when you're connected to the Stratus with the iPad, so the open ADS-B mode allows the IFD to receive the traffic and weather uh, from the Stratus. So if you have it set to for-flight mode, the IFD is not going to receive that data. Now, let's just say, like in an example here, like the aircraft in the picture here, we have a Skytrax 200 ADS-B in receiver installed. If I wanted to bring my Stratus on board, I wanted to use for-flight, then it wouldn't matter if it's in for-flight mode or not. It would just treat it like it's an extended GDL90 device, like a Sentry or something else. So the IFD is keeping its own traffic and weather there, and it's happy with it. And then my iPad is going to be receiving traffic and weather from the Stratus. So, and there'll still be flight plan transfer back and forth. So it's really up to you. I mean, at that point, if you have an ADS-B in receiver installed, it's the same reason why I carry a handheld radio in the aircraft. You know, God forbid there's any sort of electrical failure, especially IMC wise. You know, that's just an extra level of, I guess, safety or margin of safety there, having some extra equipment with you.
Thanks. Well, that's all the questions I have at this time.
Alrighty then, that was pretty good. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining, and I hope this was helpful. It will be posted up on YouTube again, but if you have any specific questions for your interface or your equipment, feel free to send us an email or give us a call.